Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
Oh, Grump, the Giants are working the kinks out for this 2021 season, and apparently your favorite podcast hosts, the Grump and the Cranky Fan, are working out the kinks on how to do a show on YouTube. So tell them what happened, Grump.
Well, the best damn podcast, shaking off some preseason rust here. I hit the wrong button. I started streaming live on the internet to an account that is associated with absolutely nothing instead of recording. So there's going to be kind of no video for this episode because I didn't realize till we were just about finished. So instead you're going to get a nice, beautiful picture screenshot of while we were recording, and it'll just be audio, but it won't happen again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry you guys won't be watching me touch my face every 10 seconds or drinking from my Starbucks cup every minute and a half. The faces made for podcasts are back. And just, you're about to see a nice static picture of us and enjoy the next half hour or so of our, somewhat expert commentary about the New York Football Giants.
All right, guys, enjoy the show. Go Giants.
Go Giants.
Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
Grump, we're playing Washington this week, so that means we are playing a division rival. That means I don't wear Eli. I don't wear Hilliard. I break out Phil Simms because I wear the important jersey for important games. So this is a very understated, very important game of the year.
Absolutely, yeah. And Cranky Fan has a lot of really, really important jersey rules and when to wear and when not to wear. They're all very convoluted. You'll never follow them. But the one that I hold on to is that division games get your legendary jerseys out. So this is the one rule. I do Lawrence Taylor for division games.
Division games, playoff games, Super Bowls gets Phil Simms. And we'll have a special 3-hour episode on my uniform etiquette at some later date, but for right now, we are going to stick to the task at hand.
Yeah.
We have a very important football game tonight as you are watching this.
That's right. Before we get into it, though, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, you know where to find us. The Giants are playing tonight, Thursday, 8:20 at FedEx Field. They got hosed. I think no team should fucking play Thursday week 2, honestly. But whatever.
It's ridiculous. I mean, the scheduling gods could not have screwed us anymore for this. I mean, it's especially the way the NFL is now, where these teams are using preseason as talent evaluations as opposed to really prepping for the season.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you mentioned that, and you can kind of make an argument that the preseason, maybe if you're playing Thursday week 2, maybe it is a good idea to play a lot more of your starters early on in the preseason, in those situations, so that you've got the rust knocked off. So, your week 1 game isn't so much that time in between week 1 and week 2. You're not spending so much of it on correcting technique, and you can worry about your game film and your next opponent. You might have done a disservice to yourself resting so much in the summer, but who's to say, really? It's kind of strange.
I mean, it's just, again, we're playing a division team on the road week 2 with really one real day of practice, I guess. They figured there's a rest day on Monday, probably did a full practice Tuesday, Wednesday's a walkthrough day all of a sudden, and then you have to get down to Washington. I don't know if they took the bus down there or they took the train or how they got down there, but it's so condensed, and the time that you spend that week 1 to week 2, that's where you go over the film the most. You make the most, technique corrections, schematic corrections, just tightening up things before you even look at film for week 2. And it really sucks that this game is, of course, the result of week 1 being so bad that this becomes critical. And we're going to talk about the importance of this game, but this is all, as we're going to finish up our Overreaction Monday marathon of kind of stomping down all these people's fears and everything getting off the ledge. This is a very, very important game for the 2021 season. We lose this game, we are 0-2. You know, we know the history of teams that are 0-2, their percentage of making the playoffs. Although this year is different since now you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, I saw it. It completely threw me off.
I'm not here.
Oh, okay. She's taking pictures of me while I'm doing this. All right, let me go back to.
Good.
All right. No, I mean, this is very important for 2021. If you go down 0-2, in the division, the percentages of making the playoffs are very thin. Although this is a year we now have a 17-game schedule, so you have a little more leeway, I guess, if you lose those first two games. But obviously, you don't want to play catch up the entire season. And quite frankly, this team, even if they clean up a lot of the mistakes that were made in week 1, is not good enough to rely on. Well, they're going to win at some point 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 8 or something. It's probably not going to happen. So they need to, win games like this. But however, this is not, and I'm going to say this in capital letters, not a referendum on the future of this franchise, as everybody is so quick to jump off the ledge. Jason Garrett is not getting fired if they lose week 2. They are not all of a sudden going to cut Daniel Jones. They are not firing Joe Judge. The Maras are not all of a sudden going to clean house after a week 2, after 3 days of break after week 1. It's not happening, guys. It's important for this year. It is not a referendum or that important for the future of this franchise. I can't stress it anymore than saying it that clear and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game itself is critical for the season, which is why it's such bullshit, because these Thursday games are always division games, and to do that and right at the beginning of the season kind of blows. But it has huge implications for how this season goes. But this game is not going to be. They're not going to look to a week 2 game on 3 days rest and as the defining moment where they decided Jason Garrett's got to go or DJ's not the guy. You know what I mean? Like, they're just not. I mean, even if they stink up the place. But I'm also, you said this team, even besides all that, isn't good enough to play catch up anyway. I'm not banking on this team to win anything until I see something better than what I saw, because I saw an offense that was, like, at best methodical, I guess. They didn't capitalize on much of anything, but at best methodical, and a defense that was just putrid.
Yeah, I think the defense was a schematic problem more than anything else. I think the offense just didn't want to make mistakes. I mean, I don't know how much that has to do with, Daniel Jones and the fear of him making mistakes. I highly doubt it. If they are that much of afraid of Daniel Jones being a turnover machine in the red zone or throwing a bad pick at the wrong time, he's not going to play.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a question of that. I just think it's a defense. I think it's a game plan where offensively they were going to maybe falsely assume for this game the defense would ride them out and just play safe. Don't attack, play safe. But when the defense failed, that whole game plan was out the window.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. This game is going to be. It's totally different than how I had this drawn up, going into the season. Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first game of the season takes a shot and suffers a hip injury. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He's on IR, so it's gone. It's Taylor Heinicke's time.
Let me ask you something, Grump, before you even start talking about this game. Having him out for so long, having him out for almost half the season, does that change your thinking about Washington and the entire division now? Or is this something where you're not really getting that much from Fitzpatrick anyway, so the gap between him and Heinicke, or even if they get someone off the scrap heap in the next couple of weeks, does it really change your predictions for, how we're going to sort out in the division?
In the division for the season, I mean, in a little bit, I'll get through the differences between Taylor Heinicke and Ryan Fitzpatrick and the implications it has for this game. To answer your question about the season, it absolutely changes everything, because who knows what happens in 6 to 8 weeks here. I mean, Taylor Heinicke, I mean, they had to sign Kyle Shermer just as a emergency quarterback. So, Taylor Heinicke is somebody that didn't perform too badly last year for them in critical situations. I mean, playing the playoff game, so I mean, there's nothing to say that. I mean, that job will be handed back to Ryan Fitzpatrick when he's healthy. I mean, you just don't know that. And we also, isn't Fitzpatrick like a million years old? Like, who's to say he heals quick enough?
I don't know. Yeah.
It changes the whole trajectory because, I mean, a lot of the assumption is that Fitzpatrick would start off okay. He'd get into this hot streak that the media falls in love with, and then he'd do the typical Shakespeare arch. You know, he's going to hit that downfall about the time that we expected him to be coming back now. So, I mean, it changes everything.
Yeah, Fitzmagic to Fitztragic. We
I mean,
know
but that's the thing. Like,
cycle.
does the Fitzmagic then start in the middle of the season? If that's the case, and they ride themselves to a 500 record while he's out, they're in pretty good shape if Fitzmagic hits when he comes back. You know what I mean? So
I think
everything changes.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is with this division, again, back to our theme from last week, week 1 means nothing. You know, if week 1 was an indicator of anything, Philly's going to get home field throughout the playoffs. Dallas has the greatest offense of all time. The Giants will struggle to score 30 points this whole season. And Washington is going to have a backup quarterback all year and be irrelevant. So, it really proves that last week is really a glorified week 4 of the preseason now. And with the extra game, now we're playing 17 games instead of 16. That almost means like it's more of a throwaway game what happened in week 1 because it's not as critical as everything else is. Especially since last week as we played a non-conference game too.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we'll see. I know that week 2 isn't a referendum on anything, but it would be a huge confidence boost for the players to put out a better performance than what we saw and obviously get a win.
There's a stink, and I text all the time with my 124 crew out there, the guys we sit with every Sunday, and the thing they have said a lot is we have to get rid of this losing culture. The losing culture hasn't changed, and
absolutely
for the past decade, it's been a losing culture. I think I brought up the point last week that we have gone longer than any other team since we've been over 500. That's a losing culture. What is it? 6 out of 8 years we've started the season 0-2. That's a losing culture. Yeah. Playing irrelevant games after Thanksgiving, like that's a losing culture. We got lucky last year because the rest of the division blew, but the rest of the division is not always going to blow, and you've got to start winning games in September to kind of reverse, get the stink out of your locker room, the stink out of the building, the stink out of the Meadowlands, and that starts now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. While we're still on injuries real quick, though, some minor ones here. Barkley was limited in the short amount of time. I would say he is listed as questionable. I'd say he's probably 50-50 for tomorrow. I don't really know what the wear and tear was really like on him. He didn't really look all that great, to be honest, when he was out there. Which was to be expected, but also is there any need to rush him out there?
Remember the way they categorize limited is that he wasn't able to take all of his snaps. It's different than the old probable, questionable, doubtful.
He is listed as questionable though.
He's risky, but I don't think those are official designations anymore.
No, they are. They have to be.
But that limited, when they say he's limited, there's an official connotation to that, and that is a very wide range of what limited means. Like if you don't do, let's say there's 20 drills and he does 18 drills, that's officially limited. So what his normal rotation of drills are, if he has to do any less than that, that's considered limited. So, there may be some gamesmanship involved with that, and again, short turnaround. That day of rest all of a sudden becomes everything is condensed, and they are not going to rush. We said this is a very important game for 2021. They're not going to risk a guy they banked the futures of this franchise around just to get him to play in a week 2 game, no matter how important it is in the division and all that.
More importantly, Evan Ingram is still going to be held out. Again, this is more short turnaround from the time of injury, which was the preseason week 3 game. And Shane Lemieux also. I mean, he didn't play much of that first week. I didn't think he would. He still hasn't been IR'd or anything like that. There is some conjecture right now as to what they're going to do about that. Ben Bredesen got a lot of snaps in the week 1 matchup, but it looks like there's some rumors out there that Billy Price might take over center and Nick Gates might move over to guard. So there's a lot of interesting things that could happen. I haven't seen anything concrete, but there seems to be a very common theme among people close to the team, like beat writers, that is what's going to happen. So that'll be very, very interesting to see. But I don't know that that's going to happen, so I can't bank on that. I mean, there's no reason to think that it's outlandish that Ben Bredesen will just play left guard and everything else will stay the same. So very interesting.
I mean, and again, another pitfall of these short weeks is you don't have enough time for, again, going back to talent analysis and looking at these guys and how do they look in practice. They're just not going to get the reps to make, they're going to be flying blind a little bit this week. And Washington's, the pressure Washington brings is not the team you kind of want to fly blind with.
Yeah. So let's get into some matchups to watch here. We'll start with the most obvious one here, and this is the big change up here. Taylor Heineke playing in at quarterback for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So the matchup here, really for me, is always going to be Patrick Graham versus Taylor Heineke. Now, we think that last week, Sunday was, a schematic problem on defense. That's what I think, mixed with a little bit of rust. I think you're right. There's a big jump down in talent from Fitzpatrick to Heineke in a certain sense. Heineke has pretty limited arm strength to push the ball downfield. A lot of his deep passes have this absurd amount of air under them. And it allows DBs that are nearby and not necessarily in coverage to get into position to make a play in the ball. Even if the wide receiver was open when he threw it. It's just, there's just so much hang time. Fitzpatrick, on the other hand, gets the ball downfield on a pretty tight rope. I mean, we're not talking about Josh Allen here, but he can make deep throws pretty damn well. He's also been around the league a lot longer, so he's seen a lot of different defensive looks. He sees adjustments. He learns pretty quickly. He's obviously very, very bright in the film room, or else he wouldn't be in the league the length of time that he has. I mean, there's a reason Fitzpatrick is here.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably older. He's probably been playing in the league longer than Tyler Heineke's been alive, so that's how long he's been playing. And, he went to Harvard, so he has some brains underneath that beard. So, yeah, you're losing a lot of that moxie. I mean, he's a victim of – he knows what his place in the league is. It's a guy they plug and play when they need someone immediately to come in and who can learn a playbook really quickly and they can utilize. But, a little limited in some of his skills, and Heineke's got even more limited skills in passing, but he can move around.
Absolutely,
he can create problems.
I would say so disguised looks are likely going to bait him into some bad throws, bad decisions, or bad audibles, or just hesitation in general. But he's still a very slippery quarterback, and he works well on the move. So I mean, there are ways to scheme for him, and they're prepared to put him out there. So this isn't like an emergency thing here. He's not to be taken.
He's been with
lightly.
The program for a little bit. He's been with the team. This is not like they just picked him up in the off season. He knows the playbook. He knows what's going on. So this is not an emergency situation. This is a guy that again, like you said, even though Philly tanked. They were in the playoffs, and he played against. And he didn't play that poorly, if I remember, in that game against Tampa Bay.
No, he didn't. I would expect that the full playbook is going to be open for Heineke, but I think the play calling is going to be a little bit more tailored to his strengths. I don't think that they're going to push the ball downfield very much. But they will. It is going to be part of the offense. That full playbook is there. It's just I don't think they're going to call the same way they would if Fitzpatrick were in.
Agreed.
The other really big, obvious matchup to watch is going to be the tackles versus Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Del Rio does a really good job of something that I don't think we see as much as we used to, and that's moving his defensive ends from side to side. He'll just switch them up wherever. So in one scenario, I don't really worry about Thomas dealing with, in a one-on-one scenario, I don't really worry about Thomas dealing with Sweat or Young. I mean, he dominated Chase Young in their last matchup last year, and in their first matchup, he was okay. He was pretty good. So at no point did Chase Young dominate him. Montez Sweat, he's more that speed rush guy around the edge with good bend, but I still feel okay with Andrew Thomas. On the other hand, I'm pretty worried about whoever lines up, whether it be Nate Solder or Matt Parrott. I don't really know that that's been solidified yet. But in all honesty, I think I'd probably still be worried if Casey Toohill, their second stringer, was starting opposite of Parrott or Solder. If this team wants to get their shit together on offense, it starts with throwing the ball down the field. And no amount of changing the play calling or the quarterback is going to make a difference if they can put pressure in the quarterback's face in less than 2 seconds.
And also, the Giants putting themselves in better, down in yardage on second and third down, too. I mean, the running game was pretty non-existent last week, so the easiest way to kind of avoid getting into trouble in the passing game and dealing with the pressure is being in as many obvious passing downs. If we're second and 9, we're third and 9 a lot. It's going to pin their ears back and go after Daniel Jones and try to have him make a mental or physical mistake. So, this is, if Barkley is quote unquote limited and questionable and all that, if he's a non-factor again and we can't get the running game moving at all, that's going to just play into the strength of these, the front seven of Washington and the passing, the rush and everything. So that's going to be just as important as blocking, is putting ourselves in the best possible position.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm going to be pretty disappointed if they make a decision on what the running game is going to be based on Saquon Barkley alone. I mean, they signed DeAndre Booker as a legitimate, role-playing back here because they knew Barkley was coming off an injury. If Barkley still looks rusty, I think that doesn't mean shit for the running game. They should be rolling with Booker a little bit more than they did against it. But Denver's game was a little different. I mean, they were being baited into stack boxes and things like that, and that's part of what Vic Fangio tries to do on defense. So we're looking at things. This game is going to be a little bit different, but I agree with you. Yeah, staying out of as many obvious passing downs as possible, utilizing play action, utilizing motion. All these things are going to help because the motion helps Daniel Jones get his reads a little bit quicker. So
that play action is going to work if they can get a running game going too. If they're, and also if they only have like 10 attempts for 17 yards and they give up on it, all of a sudden if they just start doing play action, it's just not going to fool anybody either. So it's just kind of a waste of time.
The other one I'm going to look at here, and this one was surprising to me. This was not something I would have written down if I hadn't scoped out that Washington versus Chargers game. Kenny Golladay versus Benjamin St-Juste. I was stunned to find out that Del Rio trusted Benjamin St-Juste in his first NFL game. I didn't think too highly of him personally coming out of school, but what do I know? What I do know is that there were times on Sunday where St-Juste was lined up in one-on-one man situations with Mike Williams in a red zone situation.
Yikes.
Why? Well, because despite spending $40 million on Kendall Fuller in 2020 and then another $40 million on William Jackson III this offseason, they're both 5'11 and 6 feet respectively. St-Juste seems to me that St-Juste was lined up against the 6'4 Mike Williams because he himself is 6'3. And he fared pretty well, too. Better than I would have expected. But that leads me to believe that there is a possible way for an offensive alignment to force that defense into a Kenny Golladay versus Benjamin St-Juste one-on-one situation from time to time. And if that's the case, I want them to be on the lookout for it. And I would throw every single time to Kenny Golladay in that situation.
I think you're going to see more targets to him regardless. I think, fearing what I feared about the running game, I just went through a whole little narrative how they needed to run the ball effectively, but I have a feeling it's not going to be very successful. I think you're going to see, potentially 35, 40 pass attempts, and they're going to be targeting Golladay much more, I think. Now, the guys like him, now that he's gotten his feet wet with actually playing, a lot more snaps than in week one, he's going to be more comfortable out there too. So I definitely see him being targeted significant amount of times, and even more so if they click over to him if he has that matchup that you're looking for.
I think you're right. I mean, he didn't really get involved into the Denver game until late in the game, and most of his stuff stacked up in what was objectively garbage time.
Yeah.
Yeah, even some of his catches that I am not necessarily counting as garbage time, you could make the argument that it was. So I think for sure. And also, it seemed to be that whenever Daniel Jones seemed to be going off script or whenever he was calling his own shots, he seemed to be looking his way first. And then, so I think you're right. I think Kenny is getting involved in this game more and more. What I'm interested in is if there's a way to get that matchup, because it looks like there's a way. The keys to this game, though, defensively, I'm going to say it's going to be controlling the underneath game. I can say all kinds of shit about individual matchups and whatever, but the likelihood is that they're going to be prepared to have the full playbook for Heineke, but there's going to be plays they're going to call more for him, and the underneath game is going to be his safety blanket. I mean, they're not going to want him to be lofting passes deep too often. They're still going to keep it there to keep us honest, but in critical spots, I'm worried more about Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, and Logan Thomas working the underneath stuff and just shredding us.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the playbook last week of what to do. Now, the question is, how do we react to that? There's film about, how you can beat us over the middle. And, hopefully those adjustments are being made. Because if not, it could be a long season for everybody just doing the same thing over and over again.
Oh my God, absolutely, yeah. I like our secondary. Even after their pitiful performance, I'd rather dare Heineke to air it out deep because the defense shut down the underneath stuff. That's the matchup I want. Even though they played badly deep against, we argue, is not a very good quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, I'd still take that matchup every time. Also, their tackle situation sucks. They have Charles Leno at left tackle, and he is at best a rotational right tackle prospect. And at right tackle, they have rookie Sam Cosmi, who was on roller skates against the Chargers. Now, I know we don't have Joey Bosa on our roster, but I'm sure we can cook something up to get some pressure on Heineke.
I think the key to the game to me is very simple. Get a lead.
Oh, yeah.
Play from ahead. I think that will completely changes the entire complexion of what Washington will do on offense. If we fall behind, 10-0, they are going to, they're going to batten down the hatches. They're going to be very safe and controlled. They're not going to put Heineke in any sort of position at all to fail. We're up 10-0. They're going to have to stretch him out. They may be having him to do stuff that's outside of his comfort zone, and that's when mistakes happen. And I think this is going to be a game about turnovers and mistakes. We have a quarterback who makes more physical mistakes than mental mistakes, but he makes a lot of turnover-inducing mistakes. We have a backup quarterback, and he did a nice job against Tampa Bay and filling in last year. He's a backup. Tyler Heineke is not starting for any team in this league right now, and you are what you are. So the question is going to be, do we put them in situations that they like baiting them into making mistakes? And I think the easiest way to do that is control the clock. Not control the clock, but control the scoreboard. So we have to come up with a fast start. We have to take, a 3-0, 7-0, 10-0 lead. Anything of that I'll accept. Play from ahead. It'd be nice.
I'm going to say offensively, get Kyle Rudolph actually involved. Get Kenny Golladay actually involved. Washington football team went out there and got themselves 2 good corners after being the laughingstock of the NFC East in the secondary sense for like a decade. But they're still razor thin at depth back there, and they have glaring height issues that they're just patched together a solution by drafting a third-round rookie and just throwing him out there. So Rudolph and Golladay tower over this defense. If you can force them both to be doubled, Shepard can have some opportunities. And if they can't be doubled, then they have a matchup nightmare opportunities. So if we don't test those matchups, Del Rio will have no problem leaving these unfavorable matchups out there for himself because we're not testing them until they're proven to be a problem. So we need to make them a problem. We need to be getting Kyle Rudolph and Kenny Golladay in good matchup situations and attacking them so that they become at least a distraction for this defense.
And then become a distraction. If that's working, then you could use the hot hand we have in Sterling Shepard, who looked so good last week. I'd like to ride that as long as that's going to work. So they have a lot of tape on what Sterling Shepard did last week. Those matchups which you just mentioned will be out there, so we need to take advantage of them.
Yeah. All right, so give me a prediction. I'm looking at this game. I'm not feeling as good as I felt last week. How do you feel? I
feel better about it than if Fitzpatrick was the quarterback. A theme is, the Giants have to win this game to save jobs, to stop the rebuild from happening tomorrow. That's all irrelevant, meaningless stuff. But so is the Giants own Washington. I mean, that's meaningless. The teams change so much from year to year that what happens from the previous years on becomes coincidence more than a trend. To me, a backup quarterback is a major disadvantage in this league. Doesn't mean you can't win with one, but that's not who you prepare, especially at this point in the season where Fitzpatrick got the majority of reps during training camp. You're coming off a training camp. It's a short week. You can't prepare someone the way you normally would in a situation like this. I think that is the deciding difference more than anything. The Giants, I think the offensive line did show some signs of life last week. I think Andrew Thomas played well enough last week. I think Daniel Jones, he got roasted after that game because of the turnover. I don't think he played poorly. I think he played replacement level, and that might be enough this week. It's going to be a challenge with the pass rush that they're going to have, but I think they can be exploited. I think we have weapons to do it, and I think, I'm going to zig a little bit where everybody's zagging how they think the season's over. I don't think the season's over. I think all of these NFC East teams are about 500 teams. I think we're going to go into Washington and we're going to win a low-scoring 17-14 victory, and we will be 1-1 heading into Atlanta the week after.
The thing that scares me the most about the Washington football team is probably, I think if you polled Giants fans, I think the thing that would scare them the most is probably Chase Young and Montez Sweat versus our tackles. And I obviously it worries me too, but looking back, if I'm not worried about Andrew Thomas dealing with either of those guys one-on-one, either of those guys is not better than Von Miller. And that's who Nate Solder was up against last week. And he didn't perform well, so I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's not a problem.
Von Miller didn't change the complexion of the game last week. He wasn't like the disrupting force that was like, we had to, stack that side of the line with protection and all that stuff. So, what you're saying is we're hoping that that's not the major disruptive force that it wasn't last week either.
Yeah, but also like if they can block as well as they did Von Miller, which wasn't great, but these guys can't do what Von Miller does, and neither of them has been in the league nearly as long as Von Miller has. So I'm a little less worried about that, and if this defense, I cannot accept the defense performing the way that they did last week. I think they'll be better, especially with Taylor Heineke. I know that Teddy Bridgewater was a rookie of the year at one point, prior to his injury.
He's a good quarterback.
Yeah. Taylor Heineke is not good. He is scrappy and I guess capable of putting something together that's full of Rudy level of heart, and he'll win you games from time to time. But I am not nearly as afraid of him. He does not do nearly as much as Teddy Bridgewater does. I'm just worried that it's just going to take us a long time to get an offense in rhythm because this is another good defense. So I'm with you. I think this is another low-scoring game, but I think that our defense bounces back. I think that we put the ball in the offense's hands more and more often, and I think that we get a couple of turnovers as well. So I think that this is a low-scoring game, but I have this at 20-17 Giants.
And I think we have at least 25% more plays run from offense than we did last week.
They better. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest part of the problem of the offense. We talked about it last time. Not the play calling, not any of that stuff. Is they just didn't have enough opportunities to score, and I think that's a problem. That I think the defense playing better will give us more opportunities, and there'll be more opportunities, like you said, to force turnovers from a backup quarterback. So I think we'll see 25% more plays from the offense. There'll be more opportunities. I think we will score more. In non-garbage time. There won't be garbage time this week.
Going around the league, San Francisco is at Philadelphia, the first place 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles. How do you feel about that game?
If I'm going to go on here for 2 episodes and say week 1 is pretty meaningless for my long-term view of a team, I'm going to stick by that mantra. Philadelphia will be one of the 4 worst teams in the league. San Francisco, is a borderline Super Bowl contending team. If they figure out some sort of 2-quarterback system with Trey Lance along with Jimmy Gorgeous, that could be a pretty, interesting offense. I think they go into Philly. I think they beat them pretty well.
I have them at 24-17. I think that Philly scores that last touchdown really late in the game. So it's more like 24-10. I feel the same way, but also I don't know. I know that Philly's run defense was pretty pitiful last week, but I don't think that that's really them. I think that was kind of an outlier, and I know San Francisco really likes to keep it on the ground. That's where they're most dangerous. So I think the points come for San Francisco. They're in control, but they're not able to really rack them up.
Right.
Dallas goes to L.A. to play the Chargers. How do you feel about that game?
The Cowboys will come back to earth. I think Justin Herbert will pick apart the defense. I'm not. Again, the Cowboys are another example of a Week 1 team that what you saw is not what they're going to be. Dak Prescott, very impressive coming back. He looked fantastic. The defense still stinks. I know it was Tom Brady, and it was like there's no chance that Tom Brady wasn't going to have that final drive, but that defense sucks, and it still sucks. And he was able to, at will, do that final march down the field to get the game-winning field goal. So, San Diego, I did it again. The Chargers have a budding superstar at quarterback, and I think we'll pick them apart also. Got to go out west. I'll take Chargers 31-21.
Yeah, I think that Justin Herbert carves them up a little bit. I don't know, though. I mean, I have the Chargers winning this one 33-31, but I still think I don't love the Chargers defense so much, and for what it's worth, Dallas is going to keep putting up points throughout the year, I think. They're not bad offensively. They still have a good offensive line. Dak Prescott is still probably the best quarterback in this division. Ezekiel Elliott at this point is probably the best running back in this division. They have probably the best wide receiver group in this division. That offense is
Zach Martin back this? Is Zach Martin back this week?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
But what's his face is out. The right tackle, Lyle Collins, is out. So, they were dealing with offensive line injuries all of last year. I think, I'm not going to say they're going to be fine without Lyle Collins, but they'll figure out a way around it. It's not uncharted territory. They got the news soon enough where they can game plan for not having Lyle Collins. So it is a workable situation. I don't know. Maybe they don't score 31 points, but I think both of these teams are putting up a lot of points in this game.
I think Dallas, I'm a non-believer. Of a Week 1 team, they're one of the ones obviously Philly's the biggest non-believer team I have after Week 1, and probably I'm a non-believer in how bad Green Bay was in Week 1. Dallas is kind of up there too. I need to see that repeated over and over, that they're going to be able to throw the ball like they did. Dak to play as flawlessly as he did for me to really buy into. The Cowboys are a legitimate division contender. That's just me.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know. It's a little tough to tell because Dallas. I mean, outside of Dak throwing a million times, they performed kind of how I expected. Like high-powered offense, absolutely terrible defense. So,
if Zach throws 50 times a game, they're going to be no more than an 8-8 team.
Yeah, but they won't. That won't be.
Right.
That was a game plan scenario. That wasn't. That I don't think that's how their offense is built. They didn't pay Zeke $90 million to pass block. So, or maybe they did. I don't know.
Well, they did pay Mike McCarthy to be the coach, so who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, everyone. Giants play tonight, so I hope that you've washed away week 1. You're ready for this game. I hope you're excited. I hope you're amped. I hope we did a good enough job to amp you up. I hope you get through your workday. I hope we see a win tonight, and I hope that we do a really good victory podcast episode with video on Tuesday morning.
Oh, for God's sakes. The faces made for radio are back. No, I think also, again, keep your expectations in line and keep, this is a very important game for this season. We want to maintain pace with the early division leaders, and we want to see progress. But again, John Mayer is not coming out of the 50-yard line after the game is over if we lose with pink slips to everybody. It's not happening. So don't even, a lot of you, you want change to be made. I feel you. I know we're all upset. We want this thing turned around, but they are not pulling the plug on a season after 2 weeks. So this is not they better win or else. Or else you're not going to watch anymore. Well, good. Find a nice hobby for the rest of the fall. Let this season play out. I say it over and over again. That's going to be my mantra. Let the season play out. Hopefully we enjoy a victory. If not, we're on to Atlanta. And if we lose to Atlanta, we're going to start seeing a real trend that this is probably a bad football team. But I'm not there yet. We still have 8 quarters before that happens. So let's get a win tonight and move on from there.
All right, be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at football_grump. He's at the Cranky Fan. We will see you guys on Tuesday morning, hopefully with a victory podcast. Go Giants.